Before we dive into this tutorial, let me introduce you to Jane. She had an upcoming vacation and was on the lookout for her next travel destination. As she navigated through a website, she was captivated by its content. However, when she reached the footer section, she was disappointed to find it lacking compared to the rest of the site. This subpar experience led her to seek out alternative websites and ultimately book her travel plans elsewhere. Now that Jane has left for her vacation, it's our time to create an amazing footer for this website. So let's get started. In our HTML file, we will first place a footer tag. By using this tag, we can indicate to web crawlers that this section of the website is the footer section. Next, we will add a div element with the class footer custom. Similarly, we will place a div element with the class footer container. Inside it, there will be another div with the class footer section. We will set the display of this div to a grid using CSS, which will help us manage the layout of our footer. After that, we will specify a div with the class footer content. This div will act as a grid item. Inside this div, we will place another div with the class footer about, which will contain the website logo as a basic overview. For the logo, we will use a div element with the class footer logo, within which we will place the actual logo. Similarly, for the basic overview, we will use a p tag to contain its content. After adding the logo and basic overview of the website into our footer, the next step is to add social links to the footer. We will be using box icons for the social icons, which offers a wide range of free icons for our website. To include the box icon library, we will grab its CDN link and place it under the head tag. Once the box icon is set up, we will create a UL element with the class social content. Within this UL element, we will create list items with the class social item. Each list item will contain an anchor tag, and within the anchor tag, we will place the social icon. We can search for relevant social icons in the box icon library and paste them within the anchor element. After placing one social link, we can simply copy and paste the list item element within the UL element for the other social links. Now that we have completed one section of our footer, the next step is to add some links into our footer section. To do this, we will create a div with the class footer content. Inside this div, we will have an h4 tag, which will serve as the heading for the links. Next, for the links, we will wrap them in a UL element with the class footer nav. Within our UL element, we will have list items. Under each list item, we will place an anchor tag, which will represent a link for the footer. Similarly, for the other links, we can simply copy the list item and paste it under the UL element with some changes in content only. Similarly, we will create other link sections in our footer. For this, we will simply copy the div element with the class footer content. Finally, we can change the heading and content for the footer links. Now that we have added links and a logo to our HTML, the next step is to create a section for contact information. To achieve this, we will create a div with the class footer content. Within this div, we will include an h4 tag. Following this, we will place a UL element with the class footer contact. Within this UL element, we will add list items to represent the contact information. First, we will include a section for the email. For this, we will add a list item with the class fEmail and place a related icon, which we will get from box icon. After placing the icon, we will add a span tag where we will include our email address. Similarly, for the phone numbers, we will add a list item with the class fPhone. We will include an icon to represent the phone, as well as a span tag containing the phone number. Finally, we will include the location address. To do this, we will add a list item with the class fLocation, along with an icon to represent the location marker. We will also add a span tag containing the location address. Now that we've wrapped up our main footer section, it's time to add copyright information to it. Without this, our footer will be incomplete. After closing the footer custom div, we will add a div with the class footer copyright. Following that, we will have the footer container div. Inside this div, there will be another div with the class copyright, and within that, we will have another div with the class copyright text. Finally, inside this div, we will place a p tag where we can input our copyright information. Now that we have finished with the HTML for the footer, let's proceed to CSS styling. In my CSS file, I have already imported the Poppins font and included default styles for global and pseudo elements. To start, we will apply styles to the body tag. We will set its font to Poppins and the default color to white. Next, to remove the default underline from anchor text, we will set the text decoration to none. Similarly, to remove the default bullet from list items, we will set the list style to none. Moving on to the footer element, to ensure that it stays at the bottom of the page, we will first set its position to fixed. Additionally, the right, bottom, and left properties will be set to 0. This will stretch the footer to the full width of the viewport. Similarly, setting the bottom property to 0 will place the footer at the bottom of the window. The main footer section with the class footer custom will have a padding of 20 px on the top and bottom, while the left and right will be set to 0. We will also set its background color to black. Similarly, the div element with the class footer container will have a maximum width of 1300 pixels, and we will set the margin to 0 auto, which will horizontally center the footer element. Finally, we will set the padding to 0 on the top and bottom, and 15 pixels on the left and right. Moving on to the main wrapper for our layout with the class footer section, this will be set to a grid layout. Similarly, for the mobile view, we will set the grid template columns to 1 fr, which ensures that each grid item takes a single column and occupies the full width of the viewport. For the grid items with the class footer content, we will set the padding to 0 on the top and bottom, and 10 pixels on the left and right. Next, the div element with the class footer about which wraps the footer logo and text will have a margin bottom of 1 rem. Similarly, the image within the div element with the class footer logo will also have a margin bottom of 10 px, and we will specify its height as 75 px. For the social links within the list item social item, we will specify its display as inline block to make the social icons display in the same line. Using CSS pseudo elements, we will select the class with social item except for the last element and give it a margin right of 0.5 rem. We also need to specify styles for the social icon. First, we will set its width to 50 pixels and height to 50 pixels. The color will be white and we'll add a border radius to give it a rounded look. We will also set its font size to 18 px. The display will be flex, and to horizontally and vertically center the element, we will specify justify content as center and align items as center. Finally, we will give it a light black background color. To style the heading 4 elements within the footer, we will first set its position to relative. Likewise, we will set the line height to 1, padding bottom to 20 px, and font size to 24 px. Then, for the margin, we will specify the top margin as 1 rem, left margin as 0, bottom margin as 1.625, and right margin as 0. Finally, we will set the color to white. To give an underline effect to the heading 4 tag, we will select the pseudo element after the heading 4 tag. We will specify the content to be empty, set the position to absolute, the left and bottom properties to 0, the width to 30 px, the height to 3 pixels, and the background color to a dark shade of blue. Next, we will target our footer links. We will specify their color to be white, line height to be 2 rem, and font size to be 18 px. Similarly, we will then select the list item within the footer contact class and give it a display of flex. We will set the align items to start, the line height to 2 rem, and the font weight to 400. For the icon of the contact information in our footer, we will give a margin top of 5 px, a font size of 24 pixels, a color of white, and a margin right of 10 px. Similarly, we will select the span tag within the list item and set its font size to 18 pixels. Finally, we will select the div element which wraps our copyright section and set its background color to a light black color. To complete the styling, we will select the div with the class copyright and give it a padding of 1 rem for the top and bottom and 0 for the left and right. To center the content, we will set the text align to center. Now, for the larger screen size, we will use CSS media queries. By using media queries, we will specifically target screen sizes larger than 992 pixels. In this media query, we will only modify the footer section class. We will change its grid template columns, setting the first column to 2 far and all remaining columns to 1 far. With this responsive CSS styling, we've just wrapped up a tutorial on creating a responsive footer using HTML and CSS. If you have any questions about the tutorial, please feel free to comment below. Thanks.